r/ask Reddit. What is something that sounds extremely wrong but is actually correct? We are closer to 2040 than we are to 1995. La 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 la, I can't hear your lies. Anyone remember how back in the day, say 70s, 80s, even 90s, 2020 was a common future date? Well, 2 years from now doesn't sound too super high-tech future anymore, does it? My favorite answer to this is, the last execution by guillotine in France occurred the same year Star Wars was released. 1977 was a lovely year. Not for that one guy though. The late actor Sir Christopher Lee was a witness at the last public execution by guillotine in 1939. Fun fact, he was also the only LOTR cast member to ever meet Tolkien. In English, set has more meanings than any other word, over 400 uses. Yep, there's actually a whole branch of linguistics dedicated to studying that, we call it set theory. A ton of people is 12 people. Or 1 ARP's mom. The 10th President John Tyler, president from 1841 until 1845, still has living grandchildren. Strawberries and raspberries aren't really berries, but bananas are. Also sperm, but people make that mistake all the time. Smokers have an average longer lifespan than non-smokers, because most smokers are 18 and over, and most children that die are non-smokers, lowering the average lifespan. Gotta get more sick kids smoking. This one pretty sick kid should also drive lifted truck and drink Monster Energy drink. Is that sick enough? The other day I heard someone say boughten as a past tense variable of to buy. I nearly flipped my shit, thinking there was no way. Apparently, edit. There's been some discussion whether it is a verb or rather an adjective. From what I found from googling, it functions as both. Formed from the past tense of buy, the word boughten takes bought and adds an, just as hidden comes from hid, the past tense of hide, and like hidden, boughten has 2 functions, adjective and verb form. English is ducking weird. English is 3 languages stacked on top of one another in a trench coat trying to function as a real adult. Having 6 fingers is a dominant trait in a Punnett square model. I just learned that in class the other day. Being a midget is also dominant. So, is the reason we're not all 6-fingered little people because of sexual selection? 2 copies of the achondroplasia, dwarfism, gene is lethal. That's why that is unlikely to become a common trait. Why is it lethal? You become a super midget, like in Ant-Man when they go subatomic. You miss vital proteins and die. A polar bear has black skin, and its fur is clear. You can also pet them, but only once. Polar bears and brown bears are often considered different species, but polar bears are actually a relatively new subspecies of brown bears, and the two can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Also, mules can very rarely produce foals. It is true that polar bear fur does not have white pigment, but it is inaccurate to say that it is not white or clear, as it does refract all wavelengths of light, giving it a white color, even though this is caused by a physical phenomenon rather than pigmentation. In the Netherlands, Santa Claus is accompanied not by elves, but by somewhere between 6 and 8 black men. Hahaha, I know, I'm Dutch and they're called Zwartpieten. Is it true that they used to be slaves, but now they're just good friends? Plot twist. It's actually an inner city basketball team that Santa hired to dunk presents down the chimney. The Japanese word for lemon is rimen. Before you call me racist, ask Google. So the largest reason they have that stereotypical accent is that they simply don't have L in their vocabulary, rather a letter in between L and R, which is like a slightly rolled R. Source. Studied Japanese for 3 years. Nintendo started up in 1889. Kinda makes sense why people would think it sounds wrong though. They're pretty much only known nowadays for their games consoles. Nokia was founded even earlier, 1865, and was involved in paper, wood and rubber industries among others. The Ottoman Empire still existed back then too. Maine is the closest US state to Africa. I bless the Maines down in Africa. I recently found out that Toto is not the name of a single black man, but the name for the band of a group of white dudes. There was some place I can't remember where, but some city in Africa that for much of the year is colder than New York. I think the reason was elevation. Nuclear power is safer and cleaner than any other source of energy generation mankind has ever made, and by a wide margin. Do you have 2 hands? Congrats, you're above average. Don't forget about your legs. The color orange was named after the fruit. Before that, orange was referred to as red, probably in much the same way as a lot of people would call things like burgundy red or aqua blue. I'm imagining that's why people with orange hair are known as redheads. It was also called yellow red or red yellow in a lot of languages, and fire yellow in Swedish, using the word for fire that specifically refers to a larger fire in a building, forest, etc. Lighters were invented before matches. I don't know why this makes me mad, but it does. Alaska is the most northern, western, and eastern state in the US because one of its islands stretch across the line into the eastern hemisphere. Greenland is both north, south, east and west of Iceland. The unicorn is actually the national animal of Scotland. Did you know that William Wallace drank from the breast of a unicorn? Female ferrets can actually die from not having enough sex. It's not from not having enough sex, it's if a female goes into heat and doesn't mate, it will kill her. Reddit is more popular than Instagram, also Twitter, also Yahoo is more popular than Amazon. I'm curious, based on what metric? User count? Because I would guess conservatively that like 80% of total Reddit accounts are also throwaways. Or bots. There is a species of shark, the Greenland shark, that has a lifespan of approximately 500 years. 392 plus or minus 120 years, to be exact. Bit of an overestimate. 500 years is the upper estimate of the shark's lifespan. We don't know a lot about the shark, but they're estimated to live for 400 years, give or take 100 years. That's how uncertain our estimates are. Earth is the center of the observable universe. Take that, Copernicus. Even better, you are. Technically, you are at the center of the observable universe. There are more exceptions to the rule I before E except after C in the English language than there are instances where it is true. There are also more trees on Earth than stars in the galaxy. I before E except after C and when sounding like a as in neighbor and way, and on weekends and holidays and all throughout May, and you'll always be wrong no matter what you say. I before E except after C. Except when your feisty foreign neighbor Keith leisurely receives 8 counterfeit beige sleighs from caffeinated atheist weightlifters. Weird. Inflammable and flammable mean the same thing. France has more time zones than Russia. Because of the islands, right? I seem to recall from geography classes, an eternity ago, that France is also ranked quite high in sea territory ownership despite being a fairly small country. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr. were born in the same year. And they're both dead. Coincidence? I think not. The age of consent is 14 in Italy. I'm sure there are places in the world where girls are married off younger. In Catalonia, the nativity scene, Birth of Jesus, features a man taking a shit as well as the other regular characters. Buffalo 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 is a grammatically correct sentence. When I was painting a sign for a pub and didn't know how much space to put between pig and whistle. Generally, it's more likely and consistent for things to go according to plan than horribly wrong. Kinda deflated my pessimism a little bit. On a related note, the news reports on how the world doesn't work. For example, man bites dog. Things that go to plan or are common normal aren't news. For example, dog bites man. This means that arguably watching the news regularly can make you less informed about how the world works than someone who never watches the news. Something to remember while browsing Reddit and taking it too seriously. If you put your finger in your ear and scratch, it sounds just like Pac-Man. Be honest now, how many of you tried it after reading this? Guilty as charged. It works. 2. The battery light on your dashboard is a better indicator of your alternator failing than your battery. The Turin Helicopter is the same as the Turin Pterodactylus. One would think that the word is helicopter, but it's actually helicopter from ancient Greek helix, spiral plus pteron, wing. The original name of Pepsi was Brad's drink. You are statistically more likely to be killed by a vending machine than from a shark. Fun fact, if people regularly interacted with sharks and occasionally shook them vigorously, this statistic would be different. Yeah, but if sharks dispensed snacks, every school would have won. Beeves is a plural of beef. If you give birth underwater, the baby can live its whole life without needing to breathe air. An average of 100 people choke to death on ballpoint pens every year. The fax machine was invented during the same time people were traveling the Oregon Trail, not the video game, the actual Oregon Trail, 1843. Dinosaurs walked the earth many months ago. Factoid doesn't mean a small fact or trivia, it means a piece of information that people think is true because it's accepted as true though isn't. So factoid is truly a factoid. The zipper method on roads. I know it pisses people off when cars are all in the merge lane and try to cut in, but it's actually more efficient. That lane is there for a reason. It works just like a pants zipper, absolutely fine until a dong gets in the way. Not exactly the right kind of thing, but I saw a gamer tag on Xbox once that was Big Digger Nick and I was like, whoa, hang oh, okay, never mind. The all-time record high temperature in Alaska, 100F in 1915, is higher than that of Hawaii 98F, 1957. While the letter E is the most common letter in the English alphabet, it's actually the least common first letter for major cities all over the world. The state vegetable for Oklahoma is the watermelon. Greenland is icy and Iceland is green. Toronto is south of Minneapolis. Minnesota is the furthest north of the lower 48 states. Maine is closer to Africa than Florida. Greenland and Alaska are a lot bigger than they appear on maps. The way maps are drawn can really skew our perception of size and orientation. If you put black pepper on the freshly sliced side of a strawberry, apparently it makes the strawberry taste sweeter and the taste of the pepper is non-existent. Thinking face. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.